Hi, I'm Brandy. Welcome to this introductory presentation where we'll explore the fundamental principles of the Higher Self method, a process that teaches your system how to reconnect with its own inner intelligence and natural capacity to heal. This part of the process helps educate your higher self, the aspect of you that knows everything, remembers everything, and understands exactly what needs to be brought back into balance. We no longer refer to this as the subconscious. Instead, we honor it as your higher self, the bridge between your conscious mind, your body, and your greater awareness. The purpose of this step is to help all parts of your consciousness work together. By creating shared understanding within the mind and nervous system, you'll establish the inner communication network that allows healing and repatterning to unfold with ease and precision. By the end of this process, your higher self will know how to collaborate with you on demand, helping you release old emotional charge, dissolving limiting patterns, and restore alignment so that peace and clarity become your natural state. So in this first drawing, you see an iceberg. We are using it as an analogy representing the conscious and the unconscious mind. Notice that the unconscious mind is under the water and is also many times larger than the conscious mind. Now we have added the higher self. It's your inner being, your inner genius. It can explore, identify, and repair issues that are active in the conscious and unconscious mind. You can see the ice fragments in the iceberg and one that is totally detached. So these fragments represent parts or aspects of your personality and will be explained more deeply later in this presentation. But they are the parts of us that create conflict within us, like the 4-year-old part of us who wants a cookie and then the main personality who wants to lose weight. So these parts or fragments can either be active in the iceberg or outside of the iceberg, inactive and in a dormant state. The main goal of this education process is to have all parts or aspects of your personality to want their trauma treated, want their positive behaviors and qualities strengthened with positive emotions, want to work on a consensual basis to create safe treatment plans for each and every part on the treatment team, and finally, want to be treated and join with the main personality. In this way, all aspects will have the same memory, and this will end your inner conflicts. Now in this drawing, you see a timeline from conception until now. So the higher self, as you can see here, has been present since conception and has learned the same language, whatever language you were brought up in or that of those speaking around you during gestation. So this explains why we can communicate easily with the higher self using our day-to-day language. But since it learns your language without any sensory experience or emotions attached to it, it is not affected or harmed by trauma. So there are 3 types of memories that are discovered in the clinical experience of this process. So memory 1 develops while the fetus is still in the womb. This memory consists of the simple neural structures of basic connections that are being created at that time. Memory 2 begins to develop a little before birth and keeps developing until age 4. So healthy and unhealthy core traits of the personality are formed in this memory. These traits are learned from our parents, siblings, and other influential people in our lives. Also TV, preschool, and caregivers in today's society. They are like habits because they automatically influence many of our behaviors like For example, the perfectionist, the controller, the protector, the complainer, etc. Okay, and memory 3 starts to develop shortly before birth or at birth and continues till now. And we start learning in the womb and continue to learn all our lives. Learning is, in fact, the creation of memories. Memories that are used to create our main personality are selected from memory 3. A collage of them runs our body and all our thoughts. So memory 3 contains active memories and dormant memories. Most memories are dormant, and active memories are used to create our behavior and thoughts, which are needed for our daily survival activities. But dormant or inactive memories can be awakened or triggered into activity by what we see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and our basic needs such as hunger, love, security, and safety. They are not needed all the time, but can be called into action as needed, and sometimes when they are not needed or even wanted. So now let me give you an example of a dormant memory. I'm going to ask you a question. So notice that since I did not ask the question, you do not know what the answer is. So in other words, the answer or the dormant memory was not triggered. Now watch when I ask you this. When was the last time you rode your bike? So do you notice how you start to scan memory 3 and the answer gets triggered into consciousness by the question? So you can see that when we trigger a dormant memory, it pops up into our active experience. This is important to know because sometimes we have to wake up or activate target memories in the dormant memory for the higher self to treat them. The higher self cannot see or treat dormant memories if they are not in the active experience. So now I will explain how our behavior and thoughts are formed. So the active experience, represented in the iceberg, contains all the triggered active memories and physiological responses that are influencing our behavior. So the dormant memories are outside, in the sea in this case, and the active experience includes the active memories of the main personality. It can be a skill, behavior, trait of character, or whatever is going on in your mind and body. It includes what we see, hear, feel, and taste, and all our body functions, so heartbeat, immune system, and so forth. When a situation changes, the active experience will create a new collage of active memories to form our next behavior or response. So what is interesting is that the creation of behavior is a recurrent process. This means that our last response is the basis for our next response, which changes according to what is happening. For example, when you think of a small child trying to learn to feed himself, when he is first given a spoon, he will likely miss his mouth the first time, but with repeated tries, the spoon will eventually make it to his target. You get the picture? Eventually, a child learns how to hold the utensil correctly and how to reach the mouth each and every time. So since all behavior has a unique memory structure, we are constantly changing, amassing new memories, and using them as a basis for future responses. This is how we constantly learn and grow. Now, please notice the dividing line or the water line in this analogy, which is being labeled the dissociation process. It is the line between the conscious and the unconscious. Its job is to dissociate information that is not needed in the conscious mind by moving its activity into the unconscious mind. It remains available, so it is still active, contributing to the creation of behaviors, but it is no longer conscious. Some dissociated behaviors are skills, like driving, for example. After driving for a while, you are not aware of your movements and decisions. It is an unconscious competence. You are on automatic. So the dissociation process helps simplify the content and emotions of our conscious mind, allowing us to be better focused and more effective in our lives. You may have noticed that you can use your dissociation process willingly. So in psychology, it is called suppression. So for example, when we suppress something, we say to ourselves, I don't want to think about that, or I don't want to hear that, or I don't want to know that, or I don't want to feel that. Then the suppressed memories remain mostly in the unconscious mind, out of our thoughts. And one of the incredible abilities of the higher self is being able to work with the dissociation process. So for example, it can move a trauma that we want to treat into the unconscious and allow only a safe amount of trauma into the active experience. This makes the treatment almost completely emotionally painless. So next, the association process is found at the border of the iceberg as seen here. When there is a situation calling for a new behavior or response, it is the association process that allows only the most fitting memories to be triggered into the active experience. If it lets in memories too easily, a pencil might look like a hot dog. This can happen, but a more common example of this would be when someone wants to concentrate on a task and cannot. It could be caused by too many irrelevant thoughts being triggered into the conscious mind, causing distraction. These are important concepts because when we realize that one or both of the processes are not functioning at their best, we can ask the higher self to treat the traumas that have damaged them. Right? So now I will explain how severe trauma causes parts to have amnesia or amnesic parts. So we know that we can easily remember some traumas. For example, you fall off your bike and then you go to the hospital and you come back home and tell everyone what happened. However, when the trauma caused extreme emotions and at the same time, there are no learned memories or previous experiences to know the behavior, how to handle the situation, an amnesic trauma part can be formed. For example, during a car accident or physical or sexual abuse. Remember that we can use former memories from our experience to build our next behavior. So as in the example, a child learning to feed itself, well, in this case, there is no learned memories to manage the situation. So the brain mobilizes with memories triggered by the intense emotions. When the brain mobilizes, the activated memories, independent of the main personality, pushes the main personality out of the active experience into a dormant state. So you can think of a cue ball hitting a pool ball. An executive function organizes and creates survival behavior. It can decide, plan, problem solve, and so forth, making it similar to your main personality, but with less experience. So think of the mother who lifts a car with her bare hands before her child is stuck underneath it. This survival behavior associated with a new memory structure becomes a trauma part. The trauma part then amasses or takes on an autobiographical memory that will preserve what happened during the trauma. Then later in life, when a similar situation occurs, the trauma emotions will be triggered again. And when the trauma ends, the main personality rushes in rapidly to become active and pushes the trauma part out of the active experience, rendering it dormant. It doesn't have to be amnesic, but it certainly can be. Because this happens very quickly, there are few associations between the main personality and the trauma part. They are like strangers. This creates amnesia between the part and the main personality. They do not know each other. This explains why an accident victim wakes up at the hospital several days after a car accident and doesn't remember what happened. It also explains the experience of meeting someone and not remember doing it. Looking at this drawing, you now see a bump on the main personality, where it used to be a straight line. This represents the amnesic part from the trauma. The challenge with having an amnesic part is that the emotions from these parts can be triggered into the active experience and distort your day-to-day life. This affects both the conscious and your unconscious experience, influencing your behaviors in ways that cause you to feel you have no control. Not only will it cause a response that may get a person less happiness and more pain, but it could also put someone else in danger. So think of a person with PTSD. When triggered, they could act in a way that is way less than useful. So getting more satisfaction and having less pain is the main reason for treating and integrating parts. The higher self can treat or heal trauma parts, and it does this by removing the negative emotions and pain from the trauma, replacing them with neutral or positive emotions. And it then strengthens their positive coping skills with positive emotions before joining them with the main personality. And this is very important to know. Parts do not die or lose information. They simply exchange information with the main personality. So the parts memory becomes exactly the same as the main personality's memory, and they can run the body at the same time without conflict. So for example, the 4-year-old who wants a cookie and the adult who wants to lose weight will have the same memory and no conflicts. So the part will not be motivated to get a cookie. The adult will not have to deal with that wish at all, because the part still has a unique memory structure, but its memory is identical with the main personality's memory. However, I do expect that the treatment of big, intense pain will worry some parts. So now I will explain how big pain is treated. The trauma part works with the higher self to bring it into the active experience. It puts just a little pain, like a little toe on the iceberg, into the active experience. Say 5 units of pain would be just a little of the trauma time. The members of the treatment team will adjust the rate of treatment until all members are comfortable with it. It can be 5 units, 3, 1, a half of a unit, or whatever the treatment team decides. Also, if we were to treat 5 units of pain, one treatment after the other, the trauma could destabilize and flood emotions into the conscious experience. So we want to keep that flooding from happening so we can rest after each treatment. So here you can see that we treat a few units and then we stop. We wait till the part has stabilized again before we treat some more. And this is how the higher self will do it, so that it is very gentle and often completely painless. We repeat the process, treat, rest, until we have treated all of the emotional pain associated with the part during the trauma. So take a deep breath and allow everything you've just heard to settle in. Your system now understands the language of this work. Your higher self knows what's coming next and is ready to begin guiding the process. You've completed the first step of your higher self method preparation. Congratulations. And when you're ready, join me for the introductory session, where we'll begin working with your higher self directly, gently releasing what no longer serves you and reconnecting you with peace, safety, and alignment. Your body knows how to heal, and your higher self knows how to lead. And this is where the real transformation begins.